I started taking ballet classes in West Branch, Michigan, a little ballet studio that was not much. And then in Orange County, I was, in both there and in Orange County, I was cleaning the bathrooms in exchange for ballet classes. So I don't come from like a fancy ballet school. And I was, like,
Right.
I
You
think
weren't
whenever,
trying to be Star in the Nutcracker or something.
yeah, I know. I mean, I was like a snowflake in the like little rinky-dink ballet production in Orange County. Listen to all these podcasts about the showgirls, and I'm like, they come from all these like famous ballet schools all over the world, and I'm like, oh no, that's not the kind of ballet that I did, you know?
Okay, well, thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah, so it's funny.
So I see that you started working at a strip club though when you were 19. Is that like your
Yes.
first job that required some sort
Um,
of dancing and movement?
Kind of, yeah. I was kind of like, I had so many jobs. Worked in the lingerie store when I was 14, just tagging things. Then I was a sales girl. So I worked in lingerie. And then, like I was saying, I worked in the rave scene. Like I was a go-go dancer. That was kind of my first like on stage thing. And then wandered into a strip club with some friends, and I was like, I'm gonna do this too. So I was working like all these jobs at once. And for a little while, I was working in a department store selling lingerie, and then I wanted to work in beauty. So I went into worked in at the Shiseido counter while I was doing all the other things, working at the strip club, working in the rave scene, because I always kept like a legit job because I was like, well, this is just all stuff that I'm doing for fun, like the strip club and all of these things. At the same time, I was the most famous fetish model in the world, which is very like, a big fish in a little pond, right? But I was on the cover of all those magazines because I was, kind of rehashing the whole Betty Page aesthetic, doing bondage photos, but doing it all in a vintage way. So I was famous all around the world for that. But it's like,
Wait. So that's really interesting though. Like, how did that come about? Because
it
I
just
mean, I would assume that that's a hard thing to become like the number
yeah,
one girl in that business.
I know.
Yeah.
It started with first, like, it's so hard because it's like the timeline is like all over the place.
Mm.
Um, I'm dressing vintage, so I'd have like photography students come to me and say, "Can I take your picture? You look amazing." And I'd be like, "Sure." So I'd take these pictures, and then meanwhile, I'm working in the strip club. So I'm like, "Oh, let's take pictures in my corsets. Let's do these pinup photos."
Mm.
And I had the first pinup website ever on the internet when I remember my boyfriend at the time was like, "Hey, there's this thing called the World Wide Web, and we should put you on it." And so I sold little postcard sets of me posing as a pinup girl, and you'd have to like send in your check, and then I'd like sign your little cards and then send it out. So that was like the first ever. It was one page when you could have one page on the internet, and
So it's like MySpace meets OnlyFans, kind of.
it was, yeah, but way before any of that stuff. So
Right.
this is like very early years, and yeah, so I was definitely like the first pinup girl on the internet. And then my site got bigger, and I was one of like the first, I'd say the first like 10 or 20 people to have like a membership site. Like it was when all that but was bubbling and up and all the like Playboy girls were making these membership paywalls where you would take pictures with the other girls, and we'd all like share the pictures and put them on our paywall. So I had that too. So
Right.
I'd say I became famous because I was connected. Like I would fly to Germany and shoot for this magazine called Marquee Magazine, and I do their little like fetish videos. It's like wearing corsets and walking around, and wearing trying on rubber outfits, trying on shoes. Very like non you know just I just became like the famous and the modern answer to Betty Page like that by doing all these like glossy fetish magazines all over the world. They were mostly like in London, and there was one magazine in LA and Orange County areas, and performing at these fetish parties, and everybody in that world knew me at that time.
Do you think it's because you had your own look that was kind of more romantic than this, like, wickedly sexy type of girl that can be threatening? Do you know what I mean? Like you seem more
Yeah,
beautiful, romantic, and soft
yeah.
than the
I
other.
remember very well how it all started, too, and I forgot about this part. But like, so I was working, I was working in the lingerie store, and I wanted to have a corset, and somebody gave me an address on a piece of paper, like, "Here's where you can buy a corset." And I walked in, and there was this super nice guy sitting behind the counter and all these, like, a rack of corsets and tons of magazines and, like, opera gloves and boots and all this, like, fetish gear everywhere. And I remember, like, I spent hours there, and I was talking to this guy who became a lifelong friend, and he showed me pictures of Betty Page. And so I'm looking at all these pictures of Betty Page, and I'm looking at the modern fetish magazines, and they were all like tattooed, pierced, bald girls, like really like in your face. And I was like, how come no one's doing this though? And he's like, it's wide open for you. And that's what I did. Like nobody was doing that. And so I kind of set my mind to do that.